Hey guys, good evening. This is Carrie Vaughn with Never Home, and I am here with just a phenomenal woman. This is Claire, and so we actually met each other. She is in Australia, and my husband got invited to speak at a conference in January, and I got the blessing, the joy of getting to go to Australia in January. And I will say that, Claire, the first time we met, you found out, that we had just left China, and you asked me, so tell me about some of the hard things about this transition. And I don't know if I initially cried because I had just met you, but I know at some point I probably cried when you asked me these questions. But I appreciate throughout the course of that week, every time we saw each other, some of the times I was probably stalking you because I was so grateful for the questions that you were asking me. So our random meetings in the bathroom line might not have been random on my part. You have had really thoughtful questions and have a real heart for missionaries coming and going. So I wanted to ask you a few questions today, but enough about that. I want to hear a little bit about who you are and where you've been, kind of what you're doing now.
Sure. Well, thanks for chatting as well. It's great to make this time. And I'm in the future, so I can tell you it's going to be a really lovely day.
Yay,
today.
That's great.
So yeah, I'm Claire. I'm married to Andrew, and we've lived in Melbourne for 30 odd years in Australia. Most of that time we've been in church ministry, church leadership. We've got two sons who are grown up. And a number of years ago, we realized we've been encouraging other people to think about going overseas where there are other needs. So we thought, actually, now's the time, now the kids have left home, we should think about that too. So long story short, we ended up working we were asked to come and help with international students, setting up a ministry in Switzerland. Not the kind of place you often think about for mission work. And we also had some involvement across Europe with the IFES movement there with students and with training up teams. So we've been back now for 2.5 years. And I work with our mission agency at the training college. People coming with our mission agency go and live there for 5 months. So I'm on the training team there.
Okay, great. And so you were in Switzerland for how many years?
Yeah, for about 5.5 years.
Okay. And you and I have had a conversation about your family's re-entry. What are some of the things that you found surprised you for you guys?
Yeah, so I think what I was surprised about is that no matter how prepared you are, you're never prepared. So our boss said 100% of our missionaries are always surprised by re-entry. Mm. And I thought to myself, I said, yeah, but that's because they've never done it before.
Yeah.
So whatever you've never done before, you can be told about it. Yeah. The first time you have a baby, you're so surprised about how exhausted you are. Yeah. Because you've never done it before. The first time your child leaves home and the various feelings you'll have, you've never done it before. So although I had done lots of reading and training and thinking about what it would be like to come back, I'd never done it before. So no matter how prepared I was never going to be completely prepared. And I think there were probably three or so things I wasn't prepared for that was surprising. One was that life events keep happening. They don't stop just because you're going through the trauma of re-entry. So not long after we got back, my mother died unexpectedly. And so that just knocked me completely flat. I was prepared for re-entry. I wasn't prepared for that. And so that delayed and mixed up everything and made it much more complicated. But that's life continuing. So I couldn't have seen that happen. Just like for other people, it'll be other events. Mm-hmm. I'd been told that people won't be interested. I was really surprised how uninterested people were.
Yeah.
So that was painful. And thinking about that, I think I was surprised by the whole of body grief. You know, sometimes it was an actual physical pain or an actual, just this dislocation, you know, and unsettledness that felt very physical. So I think with that, it was the overall, the word I really liked using was discombobulation.
Yeah.
That everything was inside out and upside down.
Yeah.
So I think those things you can read on paper.
Yeah.
But you're never prepared for them until you go through them. I think the other surprising thing is that processing isn't just about thinking, it's about feeling. So you actually have to have time to feel. And we in our arrogance, oh, we haven't been gone long, we're coming back to a city we know, we're coming back to jobs, it's not going to be that hard. In our arrogance, we didn't give ourselves time to process in terms of feeling.
Yeah.
So I think I needed time to lament with the Lord and to feel the feelings. I needed time to be thankful. I needed time just to be. I think somehow I thought I could think it all through, but you have to let yourself feel it. And the one other thing that I guess I hadn't, that surprised me, was that in your pain, you want to reach out to your community. Yeah, but who's your community? Your community are the people back there. Right. So you want to reach out to them, and they're in pain, so they want to reach out to you. And so you're ending up living in two or more worlds all at the same time, with the people back here going, oh, so are you settled yet? And you think, how can I be settled? My heart's torn in two.
Yeah.
I think I said to you, if it didn't hurt, it would mean that you hadn't invested. So it's going to hurt. If you've invested, then it's right that it's painful, but it's just not easy.
Yeah, I loved that you said that, because I think sometimes, especially, I think there are certain places in the world that most Americans, I don't know about Australians, but most Americans don't understand why we would prefer to live there as opposed to America. So we heard this all the time. I can't believe that. Why would you want to go to China when America has, you know, all of these things? And then in our returning, we have heard often, aren't you so glad to be back in America? And, you know, we tried to, on our better days, we would handle it diplomatically. On our not so better days, one of us or one of our kids would go, we're not happy to be in America. And we just said it. We got too tired. We were too tired to fake it anymore. But I think that's hard for some Americans to understand, is that we can love and have lived in these other places and really given ourselves over to that. And so, like you said, because of that, because if we do invest well, that means the tearing away is just going to be that much harder, you know? And so, do you think too, you know, for most of us, when we are returning to our passport countries, there's so many details that we have to attend to, right? And so you mentioned this a little bit. Do you feel like grief kind of ekes its way out as we go, but that there's some point where it feels like we're kind of backing the truck up and opening the back and it just goes blah? Did you guys experience it that way, or have you seen that as a pattern for people?
Yeah, probably. So we got back in November. So probably 11 months on, I couldn't function anymore. And I get teary just even thinking about it. I couldn't contain the tears anymore. Before then, I could function. I could function at work, point where I couldn't contain the tears anymore. Yeah. And I just had to take some time off. So I took 4 weeks off. And I made sure I didn't put myself in any situation where I had to function again. I mean, I didn't have kids at home, so that made it easier. It also made it complicated because everybody's thinking, oh, so you must be glad to be back with your kids. I'm thinking, I love my kids to bits, but in some ways being a parent when you're further away is easier. But anyway, so yes, I had to crash, and I had to let myself crash. But I knew I'd put in place all the things I would say to somebody else. I went to a GP who I knew had dealt with people with returned missos, so I knew she'd get it.
Okay.
I didn't even get through my first sentence without breaking down. So I went to my GP, I went and saw a counsellor, I took time off, I made sure I had a routine of getting up and getting exercise, and you know, I reached a couple of friends. Yeah.
And so, okay, so we kind of find ourselves in these murky waters of COVID-19. And I think for anyone who has transitioned probably in the last 2 or 3 years, this COVID-19 quarantining, everything shut down type of situation, I think is really slowing down our transition. The other piece of that is there's a lot of people who were displaced really quick, suddenly. You know, they left their country they were serving in for 2 weeks for a vacation, and now we're 5-6 months on and they can't go back.
Yeah.
So talk to me for a second about people that might find themselves in that type of situation where there's a really hurried, you got to transition now, and there was zero prep time.
Yeah. I hate to think what that must be like. That's really, really, really hard, because I can imagine there's just a sense of shock, really. You've got to deal with, because you've got to actually just deal with all the practical, logistical stuff of having to leave. So you don't actually have time to deal with the relational stuff. Yeah. So that's likely to come later. So you haven't had time to say goodbyes. Yeah. You know, not just to people, but to places, to events, to the lasts. You haven't had your lasts.
Yeah.
So somehow you have to find a way of backtracking and doing that even if you're not there. That we use with our agency that I find really helpful is writing on a piece of paper 4 quadrants.
Okay.
And in each corner, and one you write things I'll miss, things I won't miss, things I'm looking forward to, things I'm not looking forward to. It's a simple thing to do. It's great to do with kids too, because they can always have a separate piece of paper for each thing to draw, just as a way of actually identifying what are some of those things. And it might be like, I had plenty of time to prepare, but even I couldn't look at the things I'll miss quadrant because it was just so painful.
Yeah.
But you have to go there. You've got to be able to go there, because the things you miss are also the things you're thankful for. And so you want to get to the place where you're also thankful to the Lord for those things. So I think it's about asking for what you need too, finding somebody who's going to be a good listener, even if that means a professional. Asking somebody, can you give me 3 hours of your time and I need to just talk? Finding someone who's a good question asker if you can.
Yeah. Even if it means following them into the bathroom.
Yeah, do that. Yeah, that's right. Oh, if I'd known that, we would have gone out for a coffee and not gone to a session. Not your husband's session, of course.
That's right.
So I think you have to allow yourself time to feel those feelings somehow, and to think those thoughts and make the time for it. And probably you need a professional debrief.
Yeah.
You know, maybe even an organizational debrief, but also a personal debrief. I don't know how you guys take all that sort of stuff, but we take all that sort of stuff really seriously. Why do we prioritize physical health over mental health and your spiritual health? I think we need people tracking with us. I've had a lady tracking with me since I got back, because she could see what was coming up way before I could see what was coming up.
Wow.
So I think finding someone who will track with you, even if they're not there in person, is really helpful.
Yeah, that's really good. I had a friend recently, and I think we all have to come to a place and realize the number of people who are able to do that with us. We're talking like 1 or 2. You know, apart from a professional relationship, we're not talking probably a big group of people.
No.
I was doing a Marco Polo with a friend who had also lived in China, and apparently I had said, I'm fine, several times. And so she Marco Polo'd me back and she said, Carrie, I know when you start with the, yeah, I'm fine, that you're totally not fine. and
it's fine. It's fine not to be fine. Actually, that's more appropriate.
Yeah.
I'm really annoyed by people using words like, I'm coping.
Yeah.
Because I think, what's that mean? Because actually coping means experiencing all of what you're experiencing. I think we can forget that we're creatures before we're Christians, as someone once put it. And that as creatures, life is messy, and we need to listen out for those signals our body, is giving us, that it's not okay and I'm not fine. I was going to say too, for the feeling dislocated, for people who haven't really left but can't go back, and even for when you have returned, but where's home? Like, that's a horrible question to, for your kids to be asked. For you to be asked. I think one of the things I've done is I've directed that feeling to knowing that I live in the now and not yet of God's kingdom. And so actually, we're all temporary. We're all on a temporary permit, no matter where we're living.
Yeah.
That actually my passport country is God's kingdom. And I think when Paul talks in Colossians about setting your hearts and minds on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God, because that's where our home is. And so that informs how we live now, so we can enjoy the good gifts of now with our eye on the future as well, which also means the discombobulation of now, because actually that's my home.
Yeah.
So I think at the same time as listening to people's grief, that's what I'm praying for them. I'm not necessarily saying that because that's not helpful in the moment, but that's there in the back of my head.
Yeah, when you're using this word discombobulated, I keep thinking of, have you seen the movie Inside Out?
Yes.
Where they go through, they're trying to get to the train and they start coming apart, and then they come apart further, and then they become kind of blobs.
Yes.
But then they get all put back together again.
Yes.
And I think
I said to my husband the other day, because I've got various physical aches and pains. So likening to that, I said, I feel like my body's buffering while I'm waiting for the upgrade. So it's a time of buffering while you're waiting for that next phase. Yeah.
And the joy knowing that there is a next, and you will eventually stop buffering,
Yes, and that our God, the things that are unknown to us are not unknown to him.
Absolutely.
That he knows them.
Yeah.
And that he remains constant. And that we have permission to go to him and be exactly as we are, unedited. So we can bring to him all of what we're thinking and feeling, because he knows it anyway. So why would we try to curate it?
Yeah.
And so we don't have to bring him our Facebook selves. We can bring him whatever we're feeling.
Yeah. That's so good. Claire, I just so appreciate you sharing and walking us through some of these things that we should take time to really invest and evaluate, so that we can end up on the other side of buffering a healthier self than pre-buffering. So I just appreciate what you're doing in Australia, and you are welcome to come over and visit anytime.
I might wait until things have calmed down a little bit.
Yeah. I would give it a few months, but then you're welcome to come. Thanks.
I was going to say too, just with the COVID slowing re-entry down. At the same time, the other thing it does is it gives you you're having the same experience as everybody else around you. So it also gives you a common thing that you're experiencing. And so it gives, especially thinking about kids who often don't have something to refer back to, it gives them something that's a shared, albeit difficult experience. So although it will slow it down, it can also bring something else.
I think you're absolutely right. We had this discussion the other day. We said it's very weird to be experiencing such a big thing with our American people, because normally we experience it through just the news.
Yeah.
And so it has been very surreal for us to be experiencing it in real time and in real life with American people. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah. That's good. Well, thanks, Claire. Appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Have a
Thanks.
good
Lovely
one.
to see you.
All right.